Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time, I am so glad you are here and I'm looking forward to sharing this message with you. Before we get into the video, I do want to quickly disclaim that I will be talking about topics that can be intense and sensitive to some people. So if you are a highly sensitive person, I highly suggest that you watch this at your own discretion. I do want this to be a message that is healing, yet I understand if some people are not ready for that, and if you are not ready for change, if you are not ready to face the trauma and face the grief and the guilt that comes from it and the suffering, then I highly suggest that you click off this video until you're ready. And yes, I love you guys so much. You are so loved and valued on this earth, and you have so much potential. Okay, so first things first, I want to talk about how trauma impacts you and impacts your mind from bullying, abusiveness, and predators that are out there in the world. So, when I was a kid, I experienced bullying in school. I was a little bit different than the other kids, I guess, or I wasn't necessarily accepted into the society. I would rather spend time ghost hunting and having a group of people and connecting with nature and spirits. And I had a group. And we went on these adventures, and anyways, so a lot of people did not understand this, other kids, and some of them would make fun of me for this, and so I always kind of stood out. Yet at the same time, I was also involved in Girl Scouts, I was involved in sports, so I knew people and I had relationships with people. Yet because of that early on exclusion, I definitely struggled to have any really deep relationships besides the ones I'd concrete had that I had forever. And yeah, I held on to those ones, the solid ones. And I mean, even to this day, I still think there are a lot of wonderful people that I've met, and some of them I've fallen out of contact with, and that happens as you get older, and especially once I got to high school, after being attacked by the dog, after all the bullying, all the abuse, I began to isolate and kind of come into myself and not really let other people in. Again, I had that small knit group of people, and so that kept me safe. I also experienced abuse. I was abused by my parents when I was a kid, at least my dad at the time. He would yell and scream. He would be very on edge, and I had to be very aware of him as a kid to make sure not to anger him or upset him. And so I spent many times in my room or quiet, observing from the outside, seeing what mood he was in. And I definitely see how that plays into my life today. It's actually kind of interesting how bullying and abuse and being preyed on. I was almost kidnapped when I was in third grade. I remember a man pulling up in his car and asking me to get in his car, and I remember running and I remember hiding. And I remember seeing him leave and was able to make it home, and then I told my brother, and I told my mom, and they told me that I had to call the cops, and I was confused, and I was scared. I had never had somebody randomly pull up to me like that before, and I always been taught that if somebody tries to come up to you, that you need to run, and that person could hurt you. And so thankfully I was able to get out of that situation, yet I survived that situation, and now I was more conscious and aware of what's happening around me, and there was a little part of me that wonders what would have happened. And this is how trauma impacts you. It puts you on high alert. It puts you into a state of mind where you're surviving. You gotta fight, you gotta run, or you gotta freeze. I know there are certain times where I had reactions where I froze instead of running. And for example, when I was attacked by the dog, I froze. I became stagnant. I couldn't move at all. And then when I was raped, I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything, and I was scared, and I was full of fear, and yet I wasn't able to say a word. I was frozen. And having to relive that and see that in my brain, trying to process that, it was a lot for a young girl to be going through starting at like 5 or 4. And so it made me want to die. It made me want to give up. I didn't see any point in life because all I'd experienced was pain and suffering and people being mad about me and my personality and being trauma impacts you. To this day, I still have physical and emotional reactions to the trauma I've gone through. Thankfully, I have taken the steps to work on that and find ways to still be able to live and thrive in society. Thrive in society, yet I still feel them. It hasn't gone away. So yes, trauma impacts you, and it will probably impact you for the rest of your life. It is something that becomes more manageable the more you work on it, the more you maintain a consciousness of acknowledging and accepting what is reality. Those things that happen to you are part of your reality, part of your truth, part of your existence. So acknowledging them and allowing them to be, and allowing yourself to feel whatever you feel towards those things, eventually starts helping you. now we're going to go into part 2. Part 2. Here we go. This is responses to trauma. And we're going to talk a little bit about writing, creating. We're going to talk a little bit about self-harm, suicide attempts, and isolation, and how these impact you, yet also they come from a place of a triggered mind. And so as we move into this, I want you to be very aware and cautious, and to notice any feelings that come up inside your body. And I want you to really let it in and notice the story you're telling yourself, and really dive into your heart and your mind and let everything be as it is meant to be. No holding anything back. Okay. Responding to trauma is writing your pain, your frustrations, your anger, your fear. It's creating artwork to explain what's in your heart and your mind. If you harm yourself, it is a way of having a physical wound to the mental wound. Because somehow, every time when you go to explain it, people only look on the outside, they never look on the inside and see that there's more going on. There's pain that is unexplainable, incomprehensible, that one heart has to go through. And so they think that to die is better than to live. And so they begin to express that. It becomes a physical reality. They become the person they fear most. And how do you forgive that? How do you come back from that? How can you trust yourself again? Then you think that there's nobody on the earth that loves me or that I can trust. And so you try to kill yourself. You put the knife to your throat. You put the gun to your head. And you tell yourself that there's nothing more. You wrap the rope around your neck. And while you're sitting there you begin to breathe deeper, reality becomes so clear. And it's like all of the trauma, all of the pain flashes before your eyes. And then you see somebody you love. In your mind, you see this person who has cared for you and loved you and always wanted the best for you, who is cheering you on, who is by your side. That person grabs you tight and puts you into the warmest hug you have ever felt. And for a moment, all your pain washes away. And you allow it to be healed with a warm light over every wound as this person holds you close. They whisper in your ear, "You are safe. You are loved. You'll be okay. You're going to make it. I am here. I'm not letting you go." You come back to reality. All of a sudden, everything becomes so clear. No matter the pain, no matter the suffering I must go through, I would rather live 1,000 lives than to live one without you. And in your mind, you become at ease. You remember love. Hello and welcome to part 3. This is the part where we're going to get into grief a little bit and how it is involved in trauma. First off, I'm going to talk about the part you lost. That part of you that experienced that event. The one you were before that event. There is a grief that comes with that. If you feel that, I want you to take a second to notice it. What are you feeling? What are you noticing? Good. The next part is the people you lose. Grief happens at any time. There is no certain day, there's no forewarning for when grief arrives. I understand the heavy weight that one can feel from losing the people they love. I understand the pain of losing them when it wasn't planned, when there was a survival plan in place. People die, or people change, relationships end, yet you survive. There's such thing as survivor's guilt. And there are many ways to experience that. There's the anger, the frustration, the whys, things change after grief. Things aren't the way they used to be, and now you have to adapt to a world that's not the same as the one you've always lived in, or lived in for a certain amount of time. There's attachment. And to grieve an attachment is like grieving a part of yourself. And then you have to discover what about them are you grieving and somehow incorporate into your life. Maybe it's telling a story about the person. Maybe it's going for a hike. Maybe it's calling your loved one. Grief is involved in your trauma. The traumatized version of you is not the version of you that you used to be. And the person you become after the trauma is the healed self. Discovering the healed version of you is the strongest thing you can do when you're grieving. What do they look like? What is their name? Who do they want to become? Are you willing to get to that version of you? And if you said yes, what does that look like? Grief is involved in your trauma. Grief is an emotion that is normal. And it's okay and completely right to feel that emotion. Your heart is so big. You've loved very deeply. I am proud of you. I'm proud of how far you've come. I'm proud of the person you will be. I hold you in my heart. And here, you will be with me always. No matter what comes, I will love you. Grief is involved in your trauma. It is crucial that you allow your trauma to be, and you allow your grief to be in your body and allow them to be noticed. It's important to release your emotions, shake them out, dance them out, move them out. You will be okay. You will be okay. You will be okay. Alright, that's all for part 3. I'll see you in part 4. Alright, welcome back. This is part 4. And this is deciding to live. Starting off right away. So what do I do? What do I do? I didn't make plans to live this long. What do I do? Who am I? How do I survive? How do I thrive? What does life really mean? The anxiety. Is it going to happen again? When am I going to fall back again? When am I going to harm again? Who can I trust? Who do I trust? If I don't have my back, then who has my back? Who's fighting for me? Paranoia. What are they thinking? How do they feel? What can I do to make it better? How do I become better? Therapy, processing, E.M.D. We begin to tap. We begin to connect with a deeper part of our minds. We do different kinds of tapping. We even do the butterfly. She calls me to a sacred place, somewhere safe. Who is there? What are you feeling? You take a couple more breaths here. And as you're taking the deep breaths, your therapist tells you to call in a protector. Any animal, creature, or mythical being that wishes to be with you at this time. Who shows up for you? For me, I have a wolf. His name is Theo, and he has piercing blue eyes. He walks close with me. He even lets me rest my head on his back, and he rests his head on my lap. We walk through this forest together, and we see all these little creatures playing around, having fun. There's laughter and there's joy. We continue down the path and we find ourselves at this reflective pool of water. And my wolf speaks to me, telling me that the water holds my memories. And he tells me that I must submerge in the water to be reborn. And so I'm barefoot and I go into the water, and nothing happens at first. I notice the water is a little cold, but not too cold. I swim out to the middle of the lake and I take a deep breath and I dive in. And as I'm submerged under the water, in my mind, I see a young girl holding a little bear. I see a little girl sliding into home base. Catching her first game. Her trying pitching for the first time. I see my grandma's house. I see the big fielded backyard and the tire swing. I remember feeling safe. you come back up to the surface and you take a couple deep breaths and you lay on your back and you float in the water. And now as you lay in the water, some more recent memories pop up. You see the first kiss. The first hug. You see the little child looking at the scene. She seems a little fidgety. So you stop what you're doing and you go over to her and you kneel down and you look her in the eyes. And as you look at her, she looks at you, all of a sudden she begins to cry. She shares with you a story. She tells you about the scary man. And she begins to cry, and to the point where she isn't talking anymore. And so you pull her in, and you hold her, taking a couple deep breaths. And you feel as that little part of you calms down. She begins to shine and glow. Slowly she absorbs back into your body. You feel safe. You feel acknowledged. And so you move forward. Noticing how you're feeling now as you walk back to the cabin. You open the front door and you go inside, lay down on the couch, put a blanket over you. The fire is already on from earlier. And you take a sip of your glass from before you left. And you rest your head down on the pillow. And you let yourself slowly fall asleep. Notice these things with acceptance. Notice how it feels in your body. truly allow yourself to be for this moment. And as you come back into this reality, I'm going to move on to the last part I'd like to discuss about deciding to live. And this is about the skills you learn through therapy and through these guided meditation practices that happen in therapy. And one of them can be creating. Maybe you paint, maybe you draw, maybe you make content and you talk. Possibly you write about your emotions, maybe you journal, maybe you actually write stories. You might sing. Oh, I suggest you sing. I am constantly humming or dancing around, having fun, allowing myself to sing and feel and be whoever I need to be. And I love music and I love singing, so it's something that's part of who I am. And then a skill is calling a loved one, calling somebody you love and checking in on them and letting them know that they're important and that they are a special part of your life and you cherish the time you have together. I think calling somebody and checking in is wonderful. Or maybe it's shooting a message to somebody because you're wanting to check in. I highly suggest those things. And then lastly, and these are all practices that I'm talking about that I've done personally, that I do personally, and they may not work for you, but they work for me. And if you've listened this far into this video and you're interested in skills to help process your trauma, I suggest these because they've worked for me. And again, I want to reiterate, it might not work for you, yet it's better to try and know than to never try. And so the last thing is affirmations. And yes, I do kind of mean like, you got this, like, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am confident. Yet when I talk about affirmations, I talk about actually actualizing the affirmations. It means putting them into action. So while you're working out, you're saying, yes, look at how strong I am. I'm so strong right now. I'm really showing up right now. Wow. I can see how much I've grown. And being able to affirm those things that are really important to you will really help you to grow and to expand. And so I highly suggest these skills. Again, if they don't work for you, they don't. But if they do, they do. And it is what it will be. And it is what it always has been. And it will be whatever is meant to be. And allowing it all to be and going into a place of accepting yourself and noticing where you are and your truth at this time, what is actually factually around you, what is actually factually going on in your life. And that is the truth. That is the truth. That was part 4. Thank you. So now that we've reached the end of the segments and we've gone over, let's look at it, we've gone over trauma and how it impacts you. We've talked about the response to trauma and grief and how it is involved in trauma and deciding to live. After years of fighting this battle, I've given it a lot of my time. I once used to believe that life wasn't worth living, and that it would be easier to give up, to let everything go, to not fight for myself. Yet there was a warrior inside of my heart who spoke out and told me to win. It told me to fight. And so I get up and I train and I practice and I put in the work to be strong, to be perseverant and resilient through everything I go through. I will continue to resist. I will continue to resist. My heart is for peace. My heart is for love. My heart is for joy. And for that to happen, kindness must be given. Generosity and charity of spirit. There is no one like you. There's never been anyone like you. And there will never be anyone like you. You have a unique purpose here on this planet at this time. Believe in yourself, in your ability to overcome, to achieve, and to reach anything you dream of. Envision it. Cherish it. And be thankful for it. Do you know what your it is? I don't need to know. But keep fighting for your why. Keep fighting for a better today. Make today count. Now. You are the present being. You have all the knowledge of all of the trauma, all the experiences you have gone through. And you are the survivor of those things. You are the survivor of your mind. Give yourself some credit. I mean it. Give yourself some credit for how far you've come. No matter the setbacks, no matter what happens, you are making it right now. Can you give yourself a high five? Can you give me a high five? There we go. Okay. So, quick. You are so beautiful, so kind. The light in me sees and honors the light in you. And I cherish you, and I pray pray for you. I pray that no matter what you believe, no matter who you believe in, that you will feel love. I pray that you will see the light, and you will see the purpose inside of you. I pray that you hold on and cherish your inner child, that you nurture and take care of them, that you love and adore them. I pray that you will be strong no matter what comes your way. And I pray that you remember that you are strong and you are mighty, and that there is no one like you, and you are meant to be here. You are meant to be here. One more time. You are loved. You are safe. You are okay. That is everything that I have for you. Until next time.